Rich, I'm going to turn to you first. Why is the newspaper industry in the state that it's in?
Wow, I mean, well, that's a loaded question, Ed. I think there's any number of reasons for that. But clearly, advertising dollars, not what they used to be. Tremendous competition from any number of other media outlets, television, radio, the internet, of course. You could probably go on, but that's certainly the core.
Michelle, we've heard a lot about newspapers, but is television in the same boat, or is it something different?
It's the same boat. The media is evolving faster than we can keep up with it. Technology is changing, the way people want their news is changing, and we've just been in a catch-up phase for the last couple of years just to stay on top of it.
Judy, jump in here.
I know social network has played a large role. We see aggregation sites like the Huffington Post, and where you'd have a story they'd link to from the Washington Post or the New York Times, but often the eyeballs don't go over there because they just click on the aggregated site. That's posing a tremendous hurdle for established news outlets to make themselves distinct and reputable.
Molly, since you're in the business of teaching journalists, what do you tell people? Would you advise your son or daughter to go into journalism?
You know, I would advise my son or daughter to go into journalism. It is still a noble field, and it's still a very important field in that, especially now as we hear all of these voices coming on the internet, it's very important to have information that is reliable, information that is well researched, information that is well written. Will my students be working in the same kind of mediums that I did, small newspapers, traditional television? No. They're going to be working for a variety of different sources and a variety of different mediums, and they will have to bring new skills to the table, new technological skills. But I still believe in the need for good journalism.
Yes, I would definitely advise it. I don't think journalism has ever been the safest bet as a career. There are a lot of other careers you can go into where you're going to be guaranteed to make more money or have more regular hours or be safer or however you want to frame it. But we have interns that come in a 15-week program at the Sacramento Press, and I ask them because I'm always curious why, and they love the life. They want to get out there and meet people and tell stories and find out and maybe change things a little bit, and those things haven't changed at all. If anything, there are more opportunities to do that now than there ever have been.
Michelle?
I totally agree. It's a very exciting time to get into journalism. It's very entrepreneurial. People have a chance to really be storytellers and be creative about it. You're not just limited to one type of media. You now have the potential to do video, do pictures, write. You do the whole thing. 10 years ago, my job didn't even exist, and now it's one of the leading jobs that you can get in the industry. If you know web, if you know technology, if you know social media, you're in demand.
Jump in here, Judy.
Yes, I definitely. I love what I do, and I highly recommend it, whether it's my family members or outside. It's just such an adrenaline rush every day to be in the know, and I work in a state house, in the largest state house in the States, and it's dynamic. You always want to be knowing where people are, what they're doing, and to really shed light and, pull back the curtains on government. There's nothing more vital and essential to our democracy.
Well, I'll jump in there and say I agree with all that. I mean, we have a lot of opportunity to work with students, Molly students, and many others, and we get asked that question a lot. And I think more than ever I would encourage them to. Yeah, the formats are changing, there's no question, and we still haven't delineated exactly what those are going to look like. But at the end of the day, the critical thinking skills and the critical evaluation skills, we need them more than ever. And I think for people who are looking to really make a difference in the world, journalism needs them now more than they've ever needed. So I would strongly encourage them. And I agree. I mean, with the formats changing and technology changing, yeah, some of the old way of doing things is gone, but there's going to be plenty of new ways. We just haven't figured them all out yet, but I think it's still a good time.
You guys are a far more optimistic bunch than I am. And I wouldn't have thought that coming into this, because from my perspective, I look at the Bee having to lay off wave after wave of people, and it gets sad because you're not welcoming any new friends into there, and you go and you talk to young journalists and you're like, where are you going to work? But maybe I'm too cynical. Maybe I'm looking at this too harshly. Let's segue and sort of talk about some of the solutions there, because I don't know that there's an answer yet, but people are trying new things. Molly, why don't you go first?
Well, clearly there's no magic bullet to finding a financing formula for the industry as it's changed. But one of the examples that I'm holding right here is an iPad, and it's a new product called The Daily, and it's actually beautifully done. There's news gossip, unfortunately, and you can click on your interests, and they have really lovely ads too, interactive ads. Table of contents. I'm trying to find one of the ads. More people are spending more and more time with these kinds of tools, with iPads, iPhones, any kind of smartphone, really. And so there are a lot of media companies out there that are trying to capture that market. Now, whether it's a paid model like this one, it's also an advertising model. Most of them are incorporating both advertising and paid models, but you can still, on the smartphone, get the New York Times for free. And people are spending more and more time with these devices, more time than they were on their home computers. So media industries, this is just one element that they're looking at for the future as we're changing platforms. Journalism, I'd like to think, isn't really changing that much. It's still about seeking the truth and the excitement and telling a good story. But clearly the platforms are changing very dramatically.
Well, the question is how do we pay for all this? Because it's all fine and good to do great journalism, but if you can't make money off it, then what do you do? Rich, we were talking about, well, some of these models are free. Mm-hmm. Are there other ways to go?
Well, there's a couple of things that are being explored, I think, in great detail. We've talked about paywalls. We know the Wall Street Journal has a paywall now. A few of the big UK papers.
What is a paywall?
Paywall basically is you have to pay to get the content online, be it an annual subscription, monthly, what have you. There's any number of ways that can be set up. The New York Times is getting, they either started this month or they're getting ready to start their paywall. I think there's a lot of concern as to whether or not that's just trying to recreate a model that's already shown that it's dying, okay? I'm not real sure I have a lot of faith in that. I think from most of the folks that I've spoken to on this, I think the real concern is how do you get the ad revenue up? That's by far the bigger thing, because once people get used to getting something for free, it's very difficult to retrain them to start paying for it, especially something like the Times where they charge a lot of money every year to have it. So I think the jury's still out on that. We're also seeing organizations like California Watch, basically nonprofit journalism, foundation funded. They get a lot of money from the Irvine Foundation and others. We see these all over the country now. In New Mexico and Colorado, Arizona, they have big independents. We have Patch, a lot of nonprofit funded ventures. Those have a chance, I think. Depends on, I think, once again, they're operating a little bit like a wire service, being able to create their content and then sell it out. So certainly another way of doing it. I think we're probably a few years down the road from knowing how well those are built to last.
Coming at it from the back end, I know the AP has been at the forefront of trying to protect content use, where people will strip pieces of our stories and just use them on their blogs or websites without the proper authorization. And I know that that's an effort that the AP is trying to forge ahead on in terms of creating a news registry where it's similar, from my little understanding, is it's similar to the Association of Authors and Composers, how they try to protect the content and the integrity of the story so that it's not just stripped and the news organizations don't see a penny on what they've put their resources to.
Michelle, what are television stations, and your station in particular, doing?
It feels like we're doing everything. It's not, you don't just have to worry about your 5 or 6 o'clock 3-minute package. You now have to be able to go out, shoot, edit, and write your own stuff. You're Facebooking, you're Twittering all day long, you're blogging. You're basically, it is challenging, and it's almost like we're in our what we used to do for breaking news for every single story, because people want more news more often and as soon as we know it. So there's no such thing as waiting for 5 o'clock. As soon as you know something, you have something out on Twitter, you have something out on Facebook, you send a picture into the station, and something's written up on the website. So it's a constant, it's a learning process that we're going through. The reporters you have to relearn what we were taught in school. It's no longer one story a day. It's an all-day story, and it's different, and it's exciting because you do feel like you are a part of a big picture all the time.
On one hand, you have new national websites that are trying to be aggregates or collections of stories that are nationwide in scope. And then you have the other hand, which is hyperlocal, or websites that cater to a much smaller audience but in a much more focused way. Dave, talk about what your site is doing and what some of your, I guess, competitors are doing.
Well, we combine, we have a staff of, editorial staff of 5, including myself, 3 reporters. And then we have some interns, and then we also have what we call community contributors, or what some people call citizen journalists, who are basically people who can go on the site and post anything that they want to. What we find, and we offer a lot of workshops, and Molly's done a workshop for us. We offer as many workshops as we can in order to educate people about how to do journalism. And what we're finding is that, you'd think people would come on and just kind of go wild and post crazy stuff, and we don't have any trouble with that. We have a lot of people who want to be journalists. They're not necessarily journalists, but they want to, and they tend to rise to the occasion. We get a lot of stories that normally wouldn't come out because somebody knows something. Also, the benefit of being hyper-local is that you're telling very small stories. I always tell people no story is too small. We're not looking for big, comprehensive stories. We're looking about specific stories about very small, local things. And so you get local people who know things that they're not journalists, but if you give them a little coaching and give them some help and we offer copy editing, you give them a little help in putting the story out there, you get stories that you wouldn't necessarily get. Is it New York Times worthy? Probably not, but that's okay too. It's a media environment, a lot of different sources providing a lot of different kinds of news.
And there's AOL, which is sort of the big media entity that's sort of doing a similar thing through their patch.com and having very specific websites for specific audiences and even sort of smaller cities and neighborhoods.
Yeah, almost exclusively so, I think. Patches here in the area, and I think they have 3 or 4. They're Elk Grove, Carmichael, Rancho Cordova, Rosemont, right, okay. Yeah.
Dixon.
And then they go down to Pinole, and they do lots of really small towns. There's one in Pinole and Hercules. So they're hyper-local, but they're also just one person, and it's a little bit of a cookie-cutter approach that I don't think, I'll go out on a limb, I don't think it's going to work. I think it would be great, but I think that for a hyper-local site to really be effective, it still has to arise out of the community. I think it's hard to go in there and sort of provide this one-size-fits-all template and then have people come through and fill it.